So, as many of you may know, I am happily single. And you might be saying, happily single? Who is happily single? Me, Coach Top. But you have to understand what happily single means. Happily single means I like me, I love my company, I love me the way money loves me. Like I went and found me. I decided to sit next to me. I always wanted to be in the company of me. And I can say that because I feel at this point I am a high vibrating individual that can transmute negative energy and manifest all things that I desire. But I wasn't always that person. I had to really go through a very serious paradigm shift. And I still recall when Bishop preached on paradigm shift. That was the name of the sermon. Bishop Jakes preached on paradigm shift. And at that time, I was listening to the word, which I need to go listen to it again because I wasn't real clear on what the word paradigm meant. But then as I came to know, and if you read Cheat Code, go out there to Amazon and get T.W. Kane's Cheat Code book. He has a whole chapter talking about the paradigm, which is really your mindset, right? So I didn't know that. And in case you all don't know, I personally do feel that Bishop T.D. Jakes is a manifestation pastor, and his goal is to lead people to Christ, to their highest self, to live a life of abundance in the most godly way possible. That's going to leave the ultimate legacy for them. So he has been my coach and my teacher and my pastor since 1999, like way back when Bishop still had the Jerry curl and the black hair. I still recall when he aired on TBN because at the time I was watching TBN all the time, right? But I didn't really have any one person that I want to tune in and listen to all the time. And I recall, and I can't remember what it was, but it was one of those things where they bring in all of these pastors and Bishop Jakes preached. And I need to go find the footage because I still cannot recall what he preached. But it touched my soul so deeply. And at that time, I was a new babe in Christ. I was born again September 6th of 1996. And no, it was September 6th of 2006. So I actually was connected to Bishop Jakes before I was born again. So the call started way ahead of time, but then life started happening and it was crazy. It was crazy. One day I'm going to give my whole testimony, but we're not here for that. So when you first become happily single, you are self, but you still don't know yourself, right? Yourself, but you don't know yourself. So as you become to get acclimated with self and you meet yourself, that's when you start to realize, I like my company, right? And then you start to go on to your higher self because now that you met self, you want to get to know self a little bit better, right? So then you start dating self and you start learning things that you like and that you don't like. And you start setting boundaries and limits and you realize that your palate, so to speak, starts to change. The people you hang with changes. The type of food that you eat changes. The things that you drink changes, or the amount of things that you drink changes. Just change starts to go on all around you. And you start to realize, hey, I like this higher self. Let me keep working on this higher self that I'm now acclimated to because I love myself. So I can be the greatest self that I can be, right? Because you want to be greater. So then as you elevate into becoming your greatest self, once again, your palate changes. People that you hang with changes. The places that you go changes. The things that you watch changes. The things that you listen to changes. The things you eat changes. Just everything all around you starts to change. And you look back at your old self and you say, self, I would have never seen us ever coming here had I not released some of those things when I met self. And then you say, you know what? I feel like I'm at my greatest self, but I feel like there's something more. I don't really know what that something more is, but there's something more. So you continue on this journey with self and higher self and greater self, and you're all one. And you're on this journey to reach the high vibrating, negative energy, transmuting, manifesting all things this higher self. And when you meet that self, your palette doesn't necessarily change, but you recognize the moments that your palette did change. So when something from your old palette is introduced to you, you have the opportunity to connect and decide if that's where you want to sit or if you are happy where you've elevated to and willing to just enjoy each delicious moment of that high elevation self as it comes, which means you're now really just on a journey of enjoying the experience of each and every delicious moment. So I'm saying all of that to say you will constantly evolve. I'm still evolving. And I went on a connection, okay? Because everything in life is about connection. So I went on a connection. And at first I felt like it was nice, but I felt like there was a loss of words and communication. But then communication started, but it started in a different way. The communication wasn't necessarily with words. The communication was with ears and the music we were listening to and connecting over the music. And then it became food, enjoying the food that we were indulging in and connecting over the food. And then it became drinks and connecting over drinks. And then it became atmosphere, connecting in a different atmosphere from the first one. Then it became connecting just in time. But one of those connections over taste, it took me back on a journey to my old palate. So I had requested Prosecco, but the location didn't have any Prosecco. And it wasn't necessarily a location that I would request a glass of champagne. So my request was Prosecco, but they didn't have Prosecco. And I said, okay, well, do you have any sparkling wine, champagne? There was no sparkling wine. So they were like, well, what kind of wine do you want? So, of course, Moscato came up, but I had already had like this really nice, not one, but two glasses of wine at the first location. So I didn't necessarily want to indulge in a Moscato because Moscato is when you want something really sweet, right? Moscato is a sweet wine. So, and even as I'm giving you this experience, another experience has come across my mind. So I'll give you that experience in a moment. So the waiter wanted to make a suggestion. And I actually asked because I didn't want to at that point, it really was that I didn't know what to ask for. Like I don't necessarily know different brands of wine. I know my reds and I know my whites, your Sauvignon Blanc, your Merlot, your Rieslings. I actually used to sell wine, believe it or not. I'm going to get back into that. But I asked the waiter, I said, what would you suggest? Because I realized in that delicious moment, it really wasn't about me showcasing my knowledge of wine. I wanted the waiter to showcase his knowledge of wine because I'm not an expert in wine, but I could tell from his demeanor that he had a taste for wine, right? And it kind of made me think of a Samaya. Is it Samaya? Somali? Samaya? I can't say it right, right? But you know, they're like wine, true wine connoisseurs, and they're like top notch. It's a whole movie on Netflix. Y'all need to go watch it. I'll get you the name of it. So um he came back, and I think it was the Moscato I ended up having, and I think it was Sutter Home, right? And Sutter Home is a great wine. It's a very beginner friendly wine when you're trying to change your palate from constantly taking shots of Patron or Casamigos or Hennessy, and you drink a strong drink, and you want to just soften up a little bit because you want to prepare yourself for the soft life. You start introducing yourself to softer things. So a softer drink is wine. Ting. So we I sipped it, and it was like he was standing there to get my reaction. And I was like, thank you. And my friend was like, you don't like it? And I said, no, no, no. I said, actually, when I first started drinking wine, this is one of the brands I drunk. I said, and it's funny how when your palate changes, you don't recognize where you've come from. So y'all didn't know I was coming back. I'm always coming for full circle, baby. Just pay attention, right? When you first start drinking wine, you always want something sweet. You don't necessarily want the bitter wines. You want something sweet. But then you grow into introducing different wines, like a Cabernet that doesn't really have a sweetness to it. And when you first start drinking Cabernet, you might want to add like a little sparkling water to it, or some people might add spritz, Sprite, seltzer water, just something to give it. And I didn't necessarily like the seltzer water, but I did like the sparkling water, and I definitely like when we did the Sprite, right? So it gave me a more of a bitter wine, but it still had a sweetness to it. So I introduced myself to a bittersweet wine. And then I had Riesling, which is a dry wine, and to my recollection, but it's on the bitter side. So I'm not necessarily a Riesling girl, right? Right. I'm not necessarily a Cabernet girl. My aunt is a Cabernet girl though, right? You should know, like your girlfriends, your good girlfriends, like your aunties and the grandmas and the sister friends. Learn what their wines are, but also learn what the granddads and the uncles connect with people over wine, right? It's a softer connection. And my friend, he was like, "You don't like it," because I had only probably had two sips. And I said, "No, no." I said, I do. I said, I respect my beginnings, and I appreciate them. I said, but it's funny how when you start drinking wine, it's good. But as your palate changes and you get more used to the bittersweet wines, when you go back to what you started with, it's way too sweet, right? Right. Um, and that can go two ways. It can be way too sweet in a good way, or it can be way too sweet in a bad way. So I said all of that to say, in life, as you grow through those four levels of self, your self first need to meet self, because we go through life not knowing who we are. We go through life trying to appease others and make other people happy. And we start learning to do that as a child because our parents want us to do what they want us to do. They don't want us to be out here acting an ass. So we try not to act an ass. And then our parents want us to do stuff that we may not want to do, like clean up. And we clean up. But then as self meets self, and self says, you know what, I really don't like cleaning up. What can I do? Oh, I can delegate this out. How much would that cost? Oh, that's affordable. Let's put that in the budget. Right? So self has met self, and self has said, hey, you don't like cleaning. You can pay somebody else to do it. You got enough money to do it. And if you don't have enough money to do it, we gonna figure out how to get you enough money. Subconscious mind. So you can pay somebody else to do it, right? So self met self. And self said, you know what? I like myself, right? And then self decided, oh, I want to learn more about this higher self person. So you spend a moment of time with self, learning self, just to get to your higher self. Then as you're in your higher self, you start saying, you know what? I like my higher self, but I know I can be greater. So you start working to be your higher self, right? And then your higher self connects with your greatest self. And then you realize, I like my greatest self. I like my greatest self. But what else can we do? And greatest self is, let me show you a little magic and introduce you to the true art of manifestation by connecting you with your subconscious mind and to the things you desire. And before you know it, they start to manifest before your very eyes. I hope this has blessed you just as much as it has blessed me to share this with you. I'm Coach Tots, the head life correction coach at Get Your Life Together at Keep Manifesting LLC. Please be sure to click the subscribe button. Stay tuned. We go live with different people. Currently, we're doing a series with author T.W. King on his book Cheat Code. We went over key number 1 and key number 2 so far. Key number 1 was about mindset, changing your thinking, changing your paradigm. Key number 2 was about the subconscious mind. And our next live, which will be next Sunday, September 30th. Our next live will be on Sunday, October 8th. Okay. 10th month, 8th day. That's a 9. We're on a new level, baby. Don't meet me there, beat me there. Subscribe, like, and share, because we got to get this word out, because it's only up from here. Peace out. Love y'all. Okay. And we can end recording.